Hello peeps, it's Mishka over here. So today we're going to focus on the blindfold symbolism within the Waite Tarot Deck. And the blindfold symbolism in the Waite we can only find in a suit of swords, and we see it depicted in two following cards: Two of Swords and Eight of Swords. And please bear in mind, little disclaimer over here, I'm going to share with you my understanding of it, so take it or leave it. So tarot for me, it's this beautiful thing when we have the symbolism within the symbolism. On the one hand, if we're going to look at it from certain perspective, this perspective I'm choosing to look at it from, those two blindfolded figures, undoubtedly they're female. And this symbolic depiction refers, in my view, to the passive, or as some would have it, the feminine aspect of the cosmic stroke universal laws. On the other hand, we have the suit of swords, and the suit of swords is standing for the element of air, and the element of air represents this muscular and active energy, very strong, decisive energy. Moreover, the element of air established itself in the intellect and is thought to be the propagator of thinking, ideas, as well as beliefs, our belief system, the way how we construct our reality. Let's say, some would say it's also responsible for our cognition, our cognitive abilities. And air, it's representing both seen and unseen aspect of the mental plane. So, in other words, the element of the air relates to the Hermetic Principle of Mentalism, that is saying that all is in mind and universe is mental. So this is all about our perception, the way how we believe things as we think, as we see them that way, they appear to us to be that way. In this context, the blindfold symbolism puts the accent on the passive aspect of expansive energy of air. So we're talking about the passive aspect of active element, right? So what does it mean? That means that it is mainly pointing to the fact that the air in its passive state can be unseen, and at the same time you can say that's simply unnoticeable. So if we're going to think about the air, when the air is not moving, there's no smell to it, there's no temperature to it, we don't even notice it. It's so obvious that we don't even see it. I don't know. Agree, disagree? I don't know. What your thoughts are on this one? Let's take it from the other angle. If we're going to say that the fact that we don't see, let's say the fact that we can see the proverbial something, doesn't mean that the thing does not exist. So in other words, the blindness depicts the physical representation of mental blockage, and the blindness might be both the mental, representing the mental blindness, so our inability to see things as they are, right? So the symbolism of the blindfold in the Waite, I would say predominantly deals with inability to see things clearly or simply to acknowledge what is taking the place. It might be pointing to the reluctance to face the truth. Sometimes might be referring to unwillingness to accept the facts, or it might be simply the sign that something is being hidden, or things that are so obvious we cannot see them for what they are. If the blindfold symbolism takes the center stage in a reading, it might be signifying the following themes. So it might be signifying the resistance to face the facts, might be representing this others people attitudes such as see no evil, hear no evil, might be representing out of sight, out of mind type of attitude, might be equally representing wishful thinking, might be representing escapism, might be standing for willful blindness or utter denial of what is, not wanting to acknowledge what is happening around. Might be also representing the false perception of limited options, or sometimes might be standing for tunnel vision. Quite often the blindfold, in my view, might signify the dichotomy between the conscious and unconscious within us on different levels. And this wearing of blindfolds might be representing the stasis or the lesser state of consciousness. So we don't want to rise up to something, or its dichotomy might be also taking the place between the intellect and emotion. So one doesn't want to connect with other. Going forward, what else might be representing or might be indicating moving blindly through the life, might be also indicating being unaware of the higher power that is dwelling within us and is surrounding us, might be representing or might be standing for lack of understanding or not being aware of our inner power and our inner connectivity between the external and internal influences. So it's just sometimes looking at one thing and might be representing that there is a lack of this more holistic view, is just focusing on one element, because swords, they have this tendency sometimes within them, there is this kind of, I would say, blind spots, because if the energy or thought is concentrated too much on one thing, the rest becomes almost not important. So there might be also aspect of that. Going forward, the blindfold in a tarot reading might be denoting also the need to be honest with ourselves, might be illustrating the lack of intellectual honesty in general. And I think, at least in my view, without the intellectual honesty, we fail to address the problems that they are in front of us. And if we are unable to address what we're dealing with, we're unable to resolve them and find the solutions to them. So because I tend to look at the cards in their totality, and quite often, and I'm linking here the blindfold with, quite often we see the justice being blindfolded, or the wheel of fortune, also sometimes the fight. Therefore, in its positive aspects, the blindfold might be representing the objectivity, impartiality, the lack of bias, not paying attention to appearance. and connection between two sides of brain, I would say. And in negative aspects, I would say too blind to see, literally. Being blinded by someone or something, not wanting to face reality, skewing or skewed perception, I would say skewed perception, denial of facts, engaging in fantasy or delusion, being driven by idea fix, and because quite often with swords, people that there's what we can see quite often, there's obsession or there's some kind of compulsion taking place. So swords, that tunnel vision and compulsion might be taking place. And I would say to the extent that if the truth would hit us in the face, we would still not see it, we would still recognize it. So I'm talking to such extent. Sometimes we can talk about the sensory deprivation here. Simply people not have the capacity within them to realize certain things or see them for what they are, and that sometimes it might be conscious choice, but sometimes simply either it's us or others who are just simply don't have that within them. And lastly, I would say might be representing avoidance. So I hope you find it useful, interesting, and thank you, and until the next time.